Brave New World, Chapter 15. The menial staff at the Park Lane Hospital for the Dying consisted of 162 deltas divided into two Bokanovsky groups of 84 red-headed female and 78 dark dolichocephalic male twins, respectively. At 6, when their working day was over, the two groups assembled in the vestibule of the hospital and were served by the deputy sub-bursar with their soma ration. From the lift, the savage stepped out into the midst of them, but in his mind was elsewhere, with death, with his grief, and his remorse. Mechanically, without consciousness of what he was doing, he began to shoulder his way through the crowd. Who are you pushing? Where do you think you're going? High, low, from a multitude of separate throats, only two voices squeaked or growled, repeated indefinitely, as though by a train of mirrors, two faces, one, a hairless and freckled moon haloed in orange, the other, a thin, beaked bird mask, stubbly, with 2 days' beard, turned angrily towards him. Their words, and in his ribs the sharp nudging of elbows, broke through his unawareness. He woke once more to external reality, looked round him, knew what he saw, knew it with a sinking sense of horror and disgust. For the recurrent delirium of his days and nights, the nightmare of swarming indistinguishable sameness twins, like maggots they had swarmed defilingly over the mystery of Linda's death. Maggots again, but larger, full grown, they now crawled across his grief and his repentance. He halted and, with bewildered and horrified eyes, stared round him at the khaki mob, in the midst of which, overtopping it by a full head, he stood. How many goodly creatures are there here? The singing words mocked him derisively. How beauteous mankind is! Oh, brave new world! Soma distribution, shouted a loud voice. In good order, please. Hurry up there. A door had been opened. A table and chair carried into the vestibule. The voice was that of a jaunty young alpha, who had entered carrying a black iron cash box. A murmur of satisfaction went up from the expectant twins. They forgot all about the savage. Their attention was now focused on the black cash box, which the young man had placed on the table and was now in process of unlocking. The lid was lifted. Oh, said all the 162 simultaneously, as though they were looking at fireworks. The young man took out a handful of tiny pillboxes. Now, he said peremptorily, step forward, please, one at a time, and no shoving. One at a time, with no shoving. The twins stepped forward. First, two males, then a female, then another male, then three females, then the savage stood looking on. Oh, brave new world! Oh, brave new world! In his mind, the singing words seemed to change their tone. They had mocked him through his misery and remorse, mocked him with how hideous a note of cynical derision. Fiendishly laughing, they had insisted on the low squalor, the nauseous ugliness of the nightmare. Now suddenly they trumpeted a call to arms. Oh, brave new world! Miranda was proclaiming the possibility of loveliness, the possibility of transforming even the nightmare into something fine and noble. Oh, brave new world! It was a challenge, a command. No shoving there now, shouted the deputy sub-bursar in a fury. He slammed down the lid of his cash box. I shall stop the distribution unless I have good behavior. The deltas muttered, jostled one another a little, and then were still. The threat had been effective. Deprivation of soma. Appalling thought. That's better, said the young man, and reopened his cash box. Linda had been a slave. Linda had died. Others should live in freedom, and the world be made beautiful. A reparation, a duty. And suddenly it was luminously clear to the savage what he must do. It was as though a shutter had been opened, a curtain drawn back. Now, said the deputy sub-bursar. Another khaki female stepped forward. Stop! Called the savage in a loud and ringing voice. Stop! He pushed his way to the table. The Delta stared at him with astonishment. Ford, said the deputy sub-bursar below his breath. It's the savage. He felt scared. Listen, I beg of you, cried the savage earnestly. Lend me your ears. He had never spoken in public before, and found it very difficult to express what he wanted to say. Don't take that horrible stuff. It's poison. It's poison. I say, Mr. Savage, said the deputy sub-bursar, smiling propitiatingly. propitiatingly. Would you mind letting poison to soul as well as body? Yes, but let me get on with my distribution, won't you? There's a good fellow, with cautious tenderness of one who strokes a notoriously vicious animal. He patted the savage's arm. Just let me. Never, cried the savage. But look here, old man. Throw it all away. That horrible poison. The words, throw it all away, pierced through the enfolding layers of incomprehension to the quick of the Delta's consciousness. An angry murmur went up from the crowd. I come to bring you freedom, said the savage, turning back towards the twins. I come. The deputy sub-bursar heard no more. He had slipped out of the vestibule and was looking up a number in the telephone book. Not in his own rooms, Bernard summed up. Not in mine, not in yours, not in the Aphroditeum, not in the center of or the college. Where can he have got to? Helmholtz shrugged his shoulders. They had come back from their work expecting to find the savage waiting for them at one or other of the usual meeting places, and there was no sign of the fellow, which was annoying, as they had meant to nip across to Biarritz in Helmholtz's four-seater sporticopter. They'd be late for dinner if he didn't come soon. We'll give him 5 more minutes, said Helmholtz. If he doesn't turn up by then, we'll. The ringing of the telephone bell interrupted him. He picked up the receiver. Hello? Speaking. Then, after a long interval of listening, Ford and Flivver, he swore. I'll come at once. What is it? Bernard asked. A fellow I know at the Park Lane Hospital, said Helmholtz. The savage is there. Seems to have gone mad. Anyhow, it's urgent. Will you come with me? Together they hurried along the corridor to the lifts. But do you like being slaves? The savage was saying as they entered the hospital. His face was flushed, his eyes bright with ardor and indignation. Do you like being babies? Yes, babies, mewling and puking, he added, exasperated by their bestial stupidity and to throwing insults at those he had come to save. The insults bounced off their carapace of thick stupidity. They stared at him with a blank expression of dull and sullen resentment in their eyes. Yes, puking, he fairly shouted. Grief and remorse, compassion and duty, all were forgotten now, and as it were, absorbed into an intense, overpowering hatred of these less than human monsters.